This is the Goal Talk Podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 7 of the Goal Talk Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking through everything you need to know about the Google ad auction. My guest today is Kristina Simonson, one of my good friends here at WordStream. She is our digital marketing, senior digital marketing specialist. So sorry.
Wow, that's messed up.
Forgot the senior there. And she runs all of our Google, Facebook, basically all of our in-house paid campaigns, as well as our conversion rate optimization, correct?
That's correct.
Did I miss anything?
I think that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm super excited to have you here today. This is definitely a topic that I'm personally a little bit less like in the weeds knowledgeable about. So I'm excited for you to kind of talk me through everything and get a better understanding of, how the Google ad auction really works. You ready to start?
Let's do it.
Cool. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself and your role here at WordStream? How long you've been here, what you were doing before, everything like that?
Yeah. So as Mikhail mentioned, I'm a senior digital marketing specialist. I've been at WordStream 2 years now. So started out actually out of college, went to a small digital marketing agency. There I did SEO and PPC for a variety of clients. So I kind of got started in a client-facing role. So I did all different industries, all different budget sizes. And then I came over to WordStream 2 years ago. Started out here just on our paid channels. So really started at Google Ads. So we'll talk about that today. And then from there, my position has kind of changed a bit. So went from paid channels to looking at our website, conversion rate optimization, and then have kind of morphed into a lot more strategy, data analytics. I'm in a spreadsheet most of my day. But yeah, that's really it.
I always joke that Kristina literally speaks in pivot tables. She spends
Who
so
doesn't
much
like a pivot table?
Me. She spends so much of her time in working within Google Sheets and coming up with models and plans and reporting and analytics, and it's intimidating.
It's fun.
I'm glad you feel that way. So Kristina and I were actually on the same team for about a year and a half, up until basically September when I moved over to the content team. So we were both on the acquisition team of a marketing department, and she worked on basically all of the paid side, and I worked on all of the organic side of our channels. But yeah, super excited to have you here today. Fun fact, Kristina and I actually did a road trip together in May.
Oh yeah.
Part
2 coming this spring.
Yeah, we're doing part 2. It's gonna be like a yearly thing, I think. So in May of 2019, we rented a van and did 10 national parks in 10 days. So we started in San Francisco, went all the way through California, northern to southern, through Nevada.
Yep.
Got
to see Michaela be a little bit crazy, which made me nervous. Going all the way to the edge of every cliff. But
I did the majority of the driving.
Yes.
I think you drove maybe for about 2 hours the entire trip.
I was
10
good
days.
at doing the research in the back.
Yeah,
a
lot of doodles.
A lot of doodles.
A lot of doodles. So we rented a van and we stayed in the van the whole time. It was awesome. Got to see a lot of really, really cool things. Ended up in Denver, and then flew home from there. And I think this one we're going to do Yellowstone and then Canada through Vancouver, correct?
Yeah, we're going to see Banff. It's been on the top of my list, so I'm excited for that.
Super excited. I can't wait to see Yellowstone.
Same.
So excited. Awesome. So now that we've talked about some trip stuff, let's talk about the Google ad auction.
Ooh, even funner.
Is it? Awesome. So at a high level, can you just run me through how Google approaches determining which advertisers it shows and what is the ad auction?
Yep. So before I even talk about the Google ad auction, put yourself in the shoes of if you're going to, say, a car auction or where they're kind of giving away some valuables. People go there and something's going to be auctioned off, a car example. Really what's going to happen is the prize goes to the highest bidder. You're sitting in the back and you're just like, $100, $150. It's really just about how much you're willing to spend. So thankfully Google doesn't do that. So it's really run in two different ways. So this is why I think it is a lot more fair. So if you think about a traditional auction, it's really just about how much you're willing to spend. And the Google auction is controlled. Yes, you have to have a budget, but you also have to follow best practices. So what Google is doing is they're going to look at what someone is searching. So you go to google.com, you search in your query. The searcher wants to find the best result, and Google also wants to provide the best result for them. So the whole idea of the algorithm is to determine what the searcher needs and who the right ad or advertiser is to kind of show. So they're going to look at a lot of things that we'll talk about today, but the quality of your ad, all the different settings, your budget and your bid, and then kind of review all of those elements within your account, review what they're searching, and then decide who's going to show up at the top. And then constantly what Google's going to do is look at that information that they're triggering and say, okay, how did that auction perform? How did they do in the past? And then use that data to also fuel future auctions.
So like, how can we better provide answers to the searcher's questions?
Exactly.
Based on past data. So it's interesting to think about all of these things that Google's ingesting and taking in and like viewing from both the ad account and the landing pages, everything that the advertiser provides Google in relation to how the searcher is searching. And it's wild to me that this all happens in milliseconds.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy too how Google has even changed over years. So think about, I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but when search came out, at first people were kind of just searching a couple different queries. And now every day, I forget the number of it, but there's so many different queries happening every day because people are finding that they want to get their answer and the right ones. They're using different terms, longer phrases, asking a lot of questions. So Google has really improved to be able to say, okay, we know that someone that's coming here does not have the patience to scroll through all of these results. We want to make sure that we're showing the right thing to them so that they can get their answer and kind of move on.
Yeah, and that stat specifically, I think we a couple of episodes ago, we spoke with Holly Nimick, who's on our managed services team. And the stat specifically is over 63,000 searches on Google per second. Yeah. And 15% of those searches are net new. So never been searched before, brand new for Google to see, which is really crazy that they have to continuously be updating to show the right things for these net new searches. Okay, so you've talked about, things that Google ingests and looks at within your account. I know that there are a lot of acronyms in the world of pay-per-click and search marketing in general. Can you talk me through some of the components that we'll be discussing today?
Yes. So really the first thing or how they're going to decide what shows is ad rank. So when Google's deciding when that query happens, who's going to show, first it needs to figure out, okay, what is the ad rank of all of the advertisers who match up to that query? So ad rank is decided really in two core components, quality score and then your bid. So quality score is broken down a couple different ways, but it's called quality score. So we're really talking about the quality of your account. So is your ad relevant to the query? So there's a lot of tips in here, but when someone's searching for Google Ads help, does your ad also say Google Ads help? Is your ad using best practices within using all the space, kind of having a compelling call to action? What does your landing page look like? So if someone's looking for Google Ads help, are you sending them to a page that actually talks about Google Ads help, or are you talking about Facebook 101? You don't want to get someone to something that isn't relevant to what they're looking for. So really they want to make sure that your ad's relevant, your landing page is relevant, and then also your bid. So that whole component of quality, and then you do have to be competitive with your bid. So if I'm only bidding 50 cents, it's probably unlikely if the bidder next to me is bidding 6 cents for that click and has a good quality score. So they're really going to take those two components to determine the ad rank and then decide who's going to show and where.
Yeah, so another really useful thing that we have here at WordStream is we have a lot of benchmarks around what CPC and many other metrics look like on average per specific industry. So if you're just starting out and you're trying to determine your budgets or you're trying to figure out how much you should be setting for your bid, there are a lot of resources, not only within WordStream, but online in general, that can help you determine that. We will, online, you'll be able to find those on the WordStream blog. But additionally, if you are watching this on YouTube, we'll link some of those options below as well.
And one other thing I'll add there too, for your bid, we do have a keyword tool, a free keyword tool. So if you were to use something like that, any keyword tool most likely is going to give you an idea of what the average CPC is historically. So when you're setting up that new keyword or looking at forecasting results, you can kind of use that as your gauge and making sure that you're falling in line with that, or else it's probably going to be not competitive enough at the start.
And I know that just from, historically, the cost per click bid, or the CPC bid, and the quality score together used to determine something called an ad rank. That's no longer a thing, right? Or is it?
Ad rank?
Yeah.
It is still a thing.
So what's ad position?
Ad position
is not a thing.
away.
So
Yes.
what's that?
Yeah. So historically, ad position or average position was basically telling you where you fell on the SERP. So were you position
What's
one?
the SERP?
The SERP is the search engine results page. So it would tell you for that keyword you're averaging position 4, which would tell you those are the first 4 slots on the page. It found out, though, that it wasn't super helpful of a stat. And then when I heard this news, actually, it was funny. It came out, I think, in the spring. And internally, they were kind of asking people on the team, what do you think about average position going away? And at first I was like, wow, I can't believe they would get rid of average position. Like, that's so crazy. And then I took a second and I was like, I don't think I've actually ever used average position in our account to figure out if it's doing well or what we should be doing.
So it was one of those metrics that looked like it was, or felt like it was, really pivotal to the success of your account and measuring how you're doing. But in practice, it wasn't something that you were actually really using.
No, and I think it was also distracting. So when I used to work at an agency, I know certain clients, they want to be at the top of the results, or they want to be at this position. And it's really not about you being positioned 2 every time that's going to mean success for you. So I was actually kind of happy that they got rid of it, because I don't think it's a very helpful stat that tells you what you should be doing or if you're being successful or not.
Yeah, awesome. And along that line, I think that there are a lot of misconceptions when it comes to, how your accounts are doing based on where you're positioned, or how quickly your campaigns are seeing success. With a net new account in general, how often how long do you find that it takes for these accounts to start, building up their ad rank and being successful in showing up on the SERP and being making a meaningful difference?
Yeah. So I always like to say, and it's very hard, especially being data driven and wanting to know what's going on, but setting expectations. You just set something up. Don't come tomorrow and be like, wow, this is going to be mind-blowing results. It's not going to be. So one, internally as an account manager, saying, I'm going to wait 30 days until I make a decision whether this is successful or not. And 30 days may not be enough, depending on how much you're spending, how much demand that's getting, but not coming back tomorrow and being like, well, it did really bad, or it was really expensive and didn't do anything, I'm going to pause it. I wouldn't recommend that. So I think giving yourself that 30-day threshold and then deciding if you need a little bit more time, but definitely going to check and stay on top of it, because it could all of a sudden, your change could start to drive a query that doesn't make sense. So stay on top of that, but don't make a decision to pull something too quickly.
So would you say, it kind of sounded like the lower your budget, the longer you might need to leave something in play to see if it's successful. So if you're spending less, or you have less of a PPC budget to play with, leaving those campaigns live for longer will give you more meaningful insight as to whether it's working for you. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you have a larger budget and you're spending more, you're maybe ingesting more data, you're able to make faster decisions.
Yep, exactly. So if you think about, even when you're making a decision, so an analogy, you tell someone, I want to order lunch today, and someone else is ordering for you, and you had your heart set, I'll use my sweet green because I get it every day, but I don't tell that person I wanted sweet green. So as they start to decide what they're going to get for or order for the team, they're going to decide, okay, is it going to be, do I want pizza, or do I want burritos, or do I want to go to Italy? All different options. But if you're able to give the person that's deciding more information, like, hey, I want in faster, so they can make their decision. I'm
want a
thinking
healthy
something
option.
healthier, or I'm thinking something that's in the Peru for options, and kind of giving those signals that helps to make that decision faster. So if you think about the Google Ads auction, they need information about what your goal is faster and more information sooner to be able to identify success.
And budget gives you that.
And budget gives you that. But also, well, kind of, this is in the weeds, but it's a lot about your settings. Are you tracking conversions? You need to tell the algorithm what success means for you. And if you don't tell them those signals, they're going to kind of deliver based on clicks or other things that aren't going to be as valuable for your business. So it's a lot. It all really falls in the more information you can provide the algorithm, the better. And yes, if you have a bigger budget, you could get to those significant results faster, but you can definitely do that with a smaller budget as well.
Yeah, not super necessary.
Yeah.
Patience is more necessary if you have a smaller budget.
Exactly.
Cool. So can you take me a little bit more in depth through the actual ad auction and how it works between different advertisers bidding for different spots and how Google actually selects who will go?
Yep.
and show?
Yeah. So we did talk about AdRank earlier. So what AdRank is going to be comprised of is your bid and your quality score. And really what quality score is a numerical value. So 1 through 10, Google is going to assign your quality score. So a 10 quality score is very hard to achieve. It's not very common.
What's the highest you've ever seen?
Ooh, I think I've had a 10 for a keyword, but probably a branded keyword. I'm going to be honest.
Okay.
A lot
Meaning
of times.
like a keyword that's the actual, like the word itself that you're bidding on is your brand name.
Yeah, like WordStream, for example.
Right.
If we don't have a quality score of 10, then maybe I'm doing something wrong.
Bigger problems.
Yeah, exactly. So quality score is definitely a metric to pay attention to. It is definitely a black box for advertisers to understand because Google doesn't just say, I weigh this element X% and this one this X%. It's not super straightforward of how they're going to weigh that. So really the biggest recommendation is just Google is telling you, here are the best practices, here's what we want you to do, and following that. So making sure that your ad is relevant to the query, making sure that your landing page has those keywords on it, using your ad extensions. So Google gives you all this extra room to make your ad stand out. Example, site link extension. So you search something, you see the ad, and there are a few links underneath. That extra space is totally free and it actually helps your performance and your quality score. So take advantage of every single extension you can that makes sense, because that's also going to help you. So it really, to be successful in the auction as an advertiser, is follow best practices and give Google as much information as you can so that they can deliver based on your goals. Is that a lot of information?
It's a lot of information. It's so true. I mean, what I know, which isn't nearly as much as you do, about the ad auction specifically, is that relevance is one of like the biggest indicators of what ad is going to show. Obviously, what you're bidding is going to be, important, but in terms of your quality score and determining your overall ad rank, making sure that your landing page is relevant to your ad copy, is relevant to the keywords that you're targeting, is relevant to, your overall campaign structure, which is something that I think we should talk about as well. I
do have a good example actually talking about that.
Okay.
Just for quality score. So an example when even in our account, so we bid on, I just talked about extensions. We have an account, a campaign called ad extensions, and we bid on the terms ad extensions, site links, etc.
It's different for WordStream because where a lot of our campaigns and a lot of our content is around the auction and educating people around how what we're talking about works. So
yeah, it's pretty meta.
It's meta. Yeah.
But we used to show up for hair extensions. So people were searching for a salon and they wanted to get hair extensions, and we had a keyword, ad extensions, that was set up pretty broad. And we used to actually show our ad in those cases, which one is not good for us, but two, the searcher who wants hair extensions does not want to learn about site links. So it just isn't good for either of the parties. So that's an example of just making sure that you're controlling when you're showing, because that could be a lot of wasted spend of people accidentally clicking on that ad.
So it sounds like the bigger the budget you have, the more agility you're allotted with how quickly you can make decisions because you're ingesting more data, because you're giving Google more information with your settings, but also more budget to be spending and to be gathering that data. If you have a smaller budget, it sounds like you're still able to be effective. You just might need to give it some more time before you make decisions, because you need Google to give you back some more information, correct?
Yes, exactly. Giving it some more time, but also making sure that you're giving it enough signals and the right information. So you talked about a bigger budget. You can be a little bit more broad. So if I'm spending a larger budget within my campaign, I might be able to say, this is a conversion for me, and it's kind of broad and might include a couple success signals. But if you're a smaller budget, you want to make sure that the money that you're spending is super specific and to that, so that Google understands, okay, this is what you want. I'm going to look for that signal, but it's going to take some time because you need to show up for that ad. It needs to be clicked on, and it needs to gather those signals.
So a conversion would mean an action that someone takes on your site that you tell Google is important to you. So, right. So like if it's a larger budget, you could have maybe a bunch of different, what you set up as conversions, meaning like if it's a dealership, it could be like a form fill or call now or get directions or, submit more information about a certain car. Whereas if you have a smaller budget, and you're like a more local dealer, you might only want the call now to be your convert. Am I getting the point?
No, yeah, that's right. And so really what I'm trying to say on that is less about which signal you're showing or not, is that you're giving Google the right signals. So it doesn't really matter if you're bigger budget or a smaller budget. No matter what, you need to tell Google what means success. So I do have an analogy for this one. Talking about Target. So I think
how much
most
you love
people,
Target.
who doesn't love Target? But anytime you go to Target, when I'm going there, I'm kind of like, you know what? I think I'm going to take a trip to Target. I don't really have a good idea of what I typically want. I'm just going to kind of peruse. But
you're spending hundreds.
Yeah, so that's my biggest mistake to start. But this relates to a Google Ads account if you're not telling the algorithm what you want. So say you go to Target and you're like, hey, I'm just going to walk around. I'm going to see what I want. But you walk in and you don't say, you know what, I'm going to only spend $100 today. And I want to go find a shirt and I want to get some shampoo. If you don't say what you want to get in that trip, how much you're willing to spend, you're likely going to start just walking around Target, seeing, okay, you know what, maybe I do need some new bed sheets or this pillow or a magic bullet, all different random things while you walk around. So treat that as the algorithm. So say, for example, I'm walking around Target and I just start putting things in my cart. By the time that I get to the cashier, I'll start checking out and realize, first, I only really wanted to spend 30 minutes here. I've just spent 2 hours walking around Target. Second, I've spent $300 buying random things that I really didn't need. And instead of 100, I went over my budget, and I may have forgotten the things that I really needed in that trip. I forgot the shampoo. So just like making a shopping list for a Target trip or a grocery shopping list, that's what you should be doing to the algorithm. If you go into Target or a Google Ads auction without saying, this is what I want to spend and this is my goal, you're likely just going to spend over your budget or
not accomplish your goal.
Yeah, exactly. Not accomplish your goal.
Yeah, that's a really great analogy. It makes it really easy to understand. All right, so we've talked through how the actual ad auction works and the different components of determining which ad shows. Can we talk about how Google determines how much you spend and how the bidding aspect of it works?
Yes. So before talking about how they determine, I'll just explain the different bid strategies just to make sure we cover that. So there are two core different ways to bid. So you can have a manual bid strategy, which has been an option since the beginning of Google Ads. So a lot of people kind of started with that and have been hesitant to the other side. But manual bid strategy is telling Google that you want to spend X, Y, Z for every click. This is my limit that I'm willing to spend. The other side, automated bid strategies, is something that I think advertisers have been learning to love nowadays. I was hesitant to start, but now I do actually like using automated bid strategies. And what the automated bid strategy is more at your ad group level. So a manual bid strategy, you're going to do every keyword level, you can change your bid. I want to pay $7 here, $5 here. If you're using an automated bid strategy, you can set that at your ad group level, and it's a little bit more broad.
So your ad group in the account structure, like hierarchy, your ad group is above your actual keywords?
Yes.
Okay.
So I should have said that before that. Sorry. Your
That's
campaign structure is set up so you have your campaigns as your core. Your ad groups fall under your campaigns. And then within each ad group, you have your set of keywords and then ads that you're offering.
So the keywords that are in your ad groups trigger different ads within your ad group as well.
Yep, exactly.
Cool.
So it is very important to make sure that your campaigns are structured the right way. So grouping your ad groups by themes or by keywords that are all grouped together so you can make sure that those keywords all go to an ad that makes sense for them.
Going back to the relevance aspect.
Going back to relevance.
Wow, it's full
all
circle.
About that intent. But yeah, so on the bid strategies and manual bid, really the high level is you're telling Google what you want to pay per click. Automated bid strategies, there's a lot more options. You can set it up, 1 as a target cost or 2 as a maximize. So target cost, one example is target CPA. So I want to pay $60 per conversion as an example, and then Google is going to optimize for a conversion event that counts in your CPA.
And that conversion event is not on the ad itself, but back on your website. So Google can talk to a tag or a piece of script that's on your website and optimize the ad to incite that action back on your website. And that's what the $60 per conversion is referring to, right?
Exactly.
Because sometimes I feel like I see a really high cost per conversion or what seems like a high cost per conversion. And then I forget to say that's not an action taken on the actual ad. That's an action taken getting people all the way through to the website to complete an action that we want them to do.
Exactly. So that is one of the most crucial elements of your account. So setting up conversions with your pixel. So as your example, putting a code on your thank you page that tells Google, okay, if someone clicked on my ad and then ended up on this thank you page, that's a conversion. And what the algorithm will do is gather those signals and say, okay, your cost per conversion is roughly $60 because you spent XYZ and drove this many conversions. So,
and again, there are a lot of resources on how to set up these pixels and how to instill these pieces of code and get them into your Google Ads account. We have some resources on the WordStream blog again, but there are tons on the web that are, free resources for you to use. Google has a lot of options as well. But WordStream specifically has what we call the easy tag that you instill on one spot on your website and encompasses everything, right?
Yep.
Cool.
Super easy.
Awesome. So I know that once you have everything structured the right way, you have the conversion set up and your tag set up to optimize for a certain event. And you go either manual or automatic on the bid structure. You do your research on how much you want to bid. How does Google determine the actual payment?
Okay. I see where you're going on that one. Sorry, it took a little time to get there.
Good.
So we talked about quality score. So it's going to figure out who has the best quality score in this auction. It's also going to look at bid. So this is where it could get complicated, that not everyone's using a manual bid strategy or an automated bid strategy. So what the high level is Google is going to determine which one's most competitive. So it's going to say, okay, advertiser A has this bid that's the most competitive and also a really strong quality score. They're going to go to the top. It's going to set that bid of what they're going to pay for that first advertiser. So you're not going to pay as you go down in positions, or I guess it's kind of opposite, is you're not going to pay more than a penny more than the other slot. So it's basically determining, okay, we just saw all these advertisers go into the auction. Here's what everyone's willing to pay. We decided that it's going to be $6 for the first slot and then kind of go from there, but no one's going to pay above that $6 threshold.
Got it. So if I were an advertiser and you were an advertiser and I had a lower bid but a higher quality score, and you had a higher bid but a lower quality score, one of us might end up at the top.
Yeah.
Maybe me, because I have the higher quality score, if our bids are like close enough, right? But then I pay what my bid is, or I pay what your bid is. I pay a cent over what your bid is, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. So it's going to take the next competitive bid and pay a cent over.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So if I bid $3, but you bid $2.50, I'm paying $2.51.
Exactly.
Got it. Yep. Got it. So it's almost like it's almost like the Jeopardy thing. You want to get like just over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely want to be set it competitive so you can play to show up. But yeah, know that it's likely you could be just bidding a competitive price and you might actually spend less than that.
Spend less. Cool. Awesome. I feel like we've talked through a lot of things.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot of things today. Next up, I'm wondering if we can talk about, again, the time that it takes for the algorithm to kind of learn what you need, and kind of optimize for that. I've heard you talk about something called the learning period.
Yes.
So I'm interested to hear, in your words, what that is, how you should be interacting with that, when that learning period gets triggered, what happens during that, all of the intricacies there.
Yep. So the learning period is basically the time it takes the algorithm, so Google Ads, to figure out what's going on in your campaign or your ad group, etc. The learning period is only going to happen if you're using an automated bid strategy. That's because your automated bid strategy is completely reliant on the algorithm.
Got it.
So if you have a manual bid, the algorithm just knows, okay, they have a sense of what you're willing to pay just based off that baseline. Mm-hmm. But with an automated bid strategy, it's a lot more reliant on what the algorithm has learned to figure out when you're going to show up.
Got it. So it's learning period is specific to automated bid strategies.
Exactly.
And does that get triggered every time you change your bid strategy or make a change in the account?
So they say the learning period gets triggered every time there's a significant change, which a significant change
seems very broad.
It's very broad, but we've learned how to maneuver around it. So I have some tips. Some things of if you change your bid strategy, you're definitely going to go into a learning period. That's for sure. If you change your budget by a significant amount, it could incur a learning period. So a guideline that we've learned is don't increase our daily budget by more than 20% in a given day. So if I were to randomly decide to triple our budget, all of a sudden I'm telling the algorithm, hey, I'm willing to spend so much more on this campaign that you have some signals about. It's going to have to figure out how can I even get to that level of spend, and it's likely going to learn again.
Okay. So biggest ones are if you change your bid strategy within automated,
yep.
If you change something within there, or if you instill a percentage budget change over 20%.
Yep.
Got it. Any other ones?
And if you make bulk changes like pausing 75% of your keywords or something crazy within that campaign. Wow. So that one I don't have an exact threshold, but just being mindful of if you're going to do some optimization, don't do a bunch of bulk changes within one.
How long does a learning period usually last?
So in Google Ads, it's 7 days. So it will have that signal there and it will say your delivery is limited kind of for these 7 days. So definitely keep in mind that your performance is going to be below average during the learning period. So it needs to figure out how to digest those signals again.
And that was going to be my next question. Yeah. What actually happens during the learning period? You stop showing ads?
Mm-hmm. You don't stop showing ads, but you will see delivery go down. So we've had cases where we changed also your settings. So we changed something about one of our conversion actions. And all of a sudden, this was a conversion action that Google understood what meant success for us. Mm-hmm. And we changed what that meant. So Google now had to say, okay, you want to optimize for this event. Now I need to understand what queries drive that, which of your ads are going to drive success, what your bid should be, how much you're willing to spend. So it just needs to basically rerun through all your settings and then understand what is performing well and what isn't, so then they can optimize your delivery moving forward.
So once that ends, they'll alert you or
You won't get alerted. Nope.
They'll just start delivering.
They'll just
your
keep
ads.
going. They'll
Okay, cool.
Basically, I mean, it's not going to be a switch on or off after 7 days. Throughout the 7 days, it's going to get more efficient. It gives you the 7 days. So likely when your learning period, your campaign status is going to say learning, and then 7 days later, it'll just be gone, but you won't get a notification about it.
Cool. All right. So to wrap up, let's just kind of summarize the big themes we've talked about today. So can you go back and like give us the one big overview around tips for structure, how you can basically optimize your accounts for success within the auction?
Yep.
So set conversions, pixeling,
yep,
all of these like high level topics we've talked about.
Yep. And even before that, the one thing to remember we talked about at the beginning is that Google exists and they want people to search on Google and they want advertisers to be promoting their products and services there. So what Google wants to do is provide the most relevant results to the searcher so that they can find their answers. So just remembering that at the end of the day, a lot of your Google Ads account and what you're doing is to make sure that you're following what Google wants to provide for its searchers. So the first thing that starts with is how your account is set up. So following the best practices for an account structure, making sure that your campaigns are segmented and broken out accordingly is key. Making sure that you have the right settings. So tracking conversions is super, super important. If you go into Google Ads and you say you want to drive results or you have some sort of goal in mind, you're not going to get there unless you tell Google what those goals mean and by tracking conversions. So account structure, getting your settings, tracking conversions, optimizing for quality and intent. So we talked a lot about quality score, making sure that you're showing your ad to the right person with the right message and the right offer, all around relevance, and then just using all the different settings and optimization techniques that you can. So ad extensions make your ads look a lot better. Making sure you're using the right match types. We didn't talk about that a lot, but that helps you control when you're going to show up and how broad of a query you're going to show up for. Negative keywords. And then lastly, using bid adjustments to control how you're bidding across the board. So just kind of using that to help you enable the ad auction and show when and where you're going to show and then at what price.
That's a lot.
I know.
But a lot of really useful and helpful information. For more, if you want to get more in the weeds about anything that we've spoken about today, there's a ton of resources on the WordStream blog, as well as just on the internet in general. A lot of benchmark data, a lot of, keyword assets and tools that you can use, our free keyword tool, as well as more information about match types, negative keywords, all the different aspects that we're talking about here, pixelation, tracking, conversion setting. So please check those out. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks
I loved
for having
having
me.
you on the podcast.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was really fun. And until next episode, thanks so much for listening. This was episode 7 of the Gold Talk podcast. See you next time.